Welcome. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And we are so delighted that you have welcomed us into your home. We're glad to be there. Well, today we're taking questions from you, our viewers. So if you're watching during the live broadcast, you know it's Monday. Give us a jingle at 1-800-221-9460. If you are calling and you are outside North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980. And you can always send us an email with your question to jimandjoy@ewtn.com, and check us out on Facebook. Well, you know, it's Monday, so we kind of put a question out there for you, and it went like this. Have you ever been to Rome? Please share a favorite memory or a reflection.
We've gotten such great responses from people. Certainly, we have just wonderful memories of our trips to Rome. You can call 1-800-221-9460, 1-800-221-9460. And today is also the solemnity of Saints Peter and Saint Paul. Saint Peter and Paul, the two great pillars of the church, built upon their witness and their testimony, as well as the other apostles. You know, Peter is somebody that so many of us can identify with his ups and downs and faithfulness and questioning and finally, you know, really not standing for the Lord at the moment he had to do that. And then, of course, his remorse and sorrow and repentance and restoration. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Yes, he does. And so St. Peter and St. Paul, Saul of Tarsus, so feared by the Christian people, and yet struck by the Lord. And the Lord says to him, why are you persecuting me? So Jesus is in us. Jesus is in all people, but especially as Christian people. And he says, when you do something to them, you're doing something to me. So the church is founded upon those two pillars, both of them martyred, I think the year 64, in Rome, actually martyred right there. Joy, your thoughts about our trips to Rome?
Well, the first time we had the privilege of going to Rome twice, and the first time we went to Rome, we went as Protestants. And we went, and we got there, we were so excited, we flew through the night. I don't think we slept, you know, we were so excited. We landed and went to our place, checked in, and wanted to hit the streets and catch up with our friends that we were meeting that were coming up from Florence. And I walked into St. Peter's, and I really, I had no idea what was going to happen to me. I'm Protestant, okay? So, you know, I love beauty and I love everything. And I walked in, and you were with me, and we just got in right there. And I just looked up, and I looked around, and I started to weep. I couldn't stop. I was, for me, I couldn't speak. I was just, and you were like, are you okay? And I was just like, this is, and you know, okay, so now you're trying to find words. This is magnificent. This is unbelievable. You know, and I stood there.
You said it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. When you're in St. Peter's Basilica and looking around, you said, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. So what a testimony to the church and to architecture and to the spirit that was in that place and to your really being so deeply touched, how important it is the way we construct sanctuaries.
And to, you know, the whole point of all of the architecture and the beauty is to lift us up, right? Is so that we look up. It's to bring us to heaven in the beauty and the splendor and the majesty and the awe.
It's like its own sursum corda. Lift up your hearts. We lift them up into the Lord, and the sanctuary can help us do that, as well as the liturgy itself, where that's said.
So here was this little Protestant girl, just got off the plane, and you know, was to Rome on a journey, as we are, and at the end of the journey, made the decision that yes, we were going to throw in everything, cost what it might, and follow Jesus and leave our livelihood and your priesthood and follow Jesus and become Catholic.
So now we do EWTN. Who would have ever thought that? God is so gracious. So we want to hear from you. Give us a call. Shoot us off an email. Have you ever been to Rome? What was it like for you there? Can you share a little bit about that? Call us at 1-800-221 9460. There's plenty more to come. We'll be right back on the Solemnity of Saints Peter and St. Paul. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, remember that today we're taking questions during the show. So if you're watching the live broadcast on Monday, give us a jingle at 1-800-221-9460. If you're outside North America, you can reach us at 205-271-2980. And you can always send us an email with your question to jimandjoy@ewtn.com, and check us out on Facebook. So the question is, have you ever been to Rome? Please share a favorite memory or a reflection.
That's it. And we have on the phone with us a very dear friend, John Giles. John and Deborah have been on our show a couple of times.
Yes.
Wonderful family. And we took a trip to Rome together, I guess in 2002, 2003 with them. He's with Agnus Dei Farm. Go to agnusdeifarm.com. John Giles, my dear brother, are you there?
I am. How are you enjoying?
Well, we're doing just fine. It's so wonderful to celebrate with you the solemnity of Saints Peter and St. Paul on this day. And we all have such fond memories of Rome, and we wanted to hear from you about yours.
Well, thank you. And Deborah sends her love to both of you.
We receive it.
She told me that when we celebrated our 30th anniversary, I was taking her to Rome. Now, we're Protestants, too, just like y'all. And we did just that. We cashed in our Delta miles, and here we go. And we met some friends over there as well, Joy.
Yes.
We met some friends, and their name is Jim and Joy Pinto. It was a great week together, and we just had a wonderful time. But we were in Rome. Y'all remember, we were in Rome less than 24 hours and blessed with being able to see the Pope. He was at the Immaculate Conception, dedicating the refurbishing of that monument in front of the Spanish steps in the Spanish embassy. And we were able to go to Mass that morning at the Vatican. And, y'all remember we were able to go on the Scavi tour under the altar of the Vatican and see where, St. Peter was buried. And also being able to go to the church where Constantine's mother, Helena, had brought those artifacts, the relics from the cross and the nails, just like joy, just indescribable. Mm-hmm. But, being in that city and realizing it was 2,000 years old, really brought to life on the, all this is time release, as you well know. We're now converts to the Catholic faith, but apostolic succession. And I remember when we were going to the Vatican that morning, and we were out early, and it was Sunday morning, and the bells were ringing all across that city, just so overpowering, calling the faithful to Mass. We all, we got to see where Christians were martyred for their faith at the Colosseum and at the Maximus Circus Maximus, whatever you call that place. Yeah. And every church, we would go into it. Deborah, I recall the church, all the churches we went into, it drew us to prayer. It was so holy. It was so reverent. We didn't know anything about the real presence of Christ at that point in time. We were dipping our finger. We didn't know if we were authorized or not, but we were dipping our finger in the little font in the back and making a sign of the cross and realizing that through that cross and through that baptism, we had access to the Father. That's right. And we saw where Peter was hung upside down. The streets were filled with priests and sisters. Mm-hmm. And I was like you, Joy, thinking about going into the Vatican, into St. Peter's. The finest materials man had to offer in terms of stone and marble and wood. And sometimes these churches would take several lifetimes to build. It kind of left me with the impression that God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And it's just so majestic. And one of the things that stands out is we've all seen the artwork of the Vatican, St. Peter's, with the 7 streams flowing out of it. And it's the 7 sacraments. And while the church is ancient and it's very complicated, yet it's very simple. And that is, it's the Nicene Creed and the 7 sacraments. And here again, it's like time release. everything a Christian or a non-Christian or a believer or unbeliever needs, whatever need we have in our life, can be met in those 7 sacraments.
Amen.
Just a powerful experience for both of us.
John Giles, thank you so much for those wonderful reflections. You bring forth so many memories from us, and I'm sure from other people. AgnesDayFarm.com if you want to know more about John and Deborah Giles. God bless you, my brother. Thank you so much.
Love
y'all.
you.
All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, yeah. The interesting is John shared so much of what he shared before he got into the sacraments. Well, that is, well, it's concrete. That the faith is so concrete, that this is where people walk, where people live, where people were martyred in the various churches and so on. I remember when we first came into Rome, the first trip, that it was late in the afternoon and we got settled in, and the first place we went to was St. Paul's outside the walls, dedicated to St. Paul, the apostle, one of the apostles that we celebrate today. And it was about 5 o'clock or so. They were closing down. There was nobody there. And I so wanted to get in. Such a beautiful church, palm trees around it. And so I remember we did get in the door. And there was one person cleaning. So I said, is it too late for us to get in? So he goes, no, come in. Had it all to ourselves. And I'll never forget looking down. The pillars are there and this beautiful marble floor. And then there's the altar. And then under the altar was a votive candle. And I said to the guy who was the caretaker or cleaning up, I said, what is that candle down there? And he said to me, those are the remains of St. Paul. I was like, those are the remains of St. Paul. He says, yes. And I think he also said he was decapitated not far from here. And I'm saying, this is all really happening. I've heard about this. I've read about it, but this happened. So I just walked with my shoes on, hearing the shoes, clip, clop, echoing. And here I am, a lapsed Catholic, an Episcopal priest, and making pilgrimage there. And finally, I walked up to where his remains were by that altar there, got down on my knees, and here are the remains of St. Paul, right before my eyes. And I think of that verse, I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I live by faith in the Son of God who died for me and who rose again. Those are his words. I've read them in the Bible. I love them. Here he is. And I'm saying, wow, this is a special place. This really happened. They were really martyred here. This is God's chosen, Rome. And God chose Israel, not because they were so wonderful. He said, you're a stiff-necked and stubborn people. I can tell you about the Italians, their strong points and their weak points. God just used Rome at the time to bring the gospel to the world. And I shared with St. Paul there, and one of the things I told him who I was, and I'm a lapsed Catholic, and I'm here, and, I'm trying to, maybe I should come back. And one of the things I said to him, though, was, I said, this sanctuary is so beautiful, and there's so many beautiful things, and the church has so much money, at least it did at that time. I don't know if it does anymore. But, we have so many things. Is it okay, all the wealth and all this beauty, is that okay in the midst of this world? And I felt like St. Paul said to me, Jim, it wasn't always this way. We were fools. We were fools for Christ's sake, and they killed us. And upon our bones, upon our blood, all this has sprung up. It's okay.
Yeah.
This is good too. The simple church on the persecution, not having anything, yeah, and that's where this came from. But also the beauty of the church, enjoying people of the church, and the victory of the church over the tombs and blood of the martyrs. And I'll never forget that in my life, and it led to my reverting back into the church.
Well, during that time, as a married couple, I remember watching you walk with the clip clock, and I stayed behind, because I was just trying to, Lord, what's going on? It was a painful, scary kind of time. Yeah. I was delighted to be there, but yet I knew God was doing something really big in our lives. And, St. Paul and St. Peter, they converted. And you and I, we got to be converted. Every single day, we got to lay down our life like the apostles laid down their lives on this day. And the greatest tribute, if you haven't been saved from anything and your life hasn't changed, it was going to cost us a lot. I mean, we were walking away from a livelihood, a reputation, all the comforts that the world can give and all that stuff that you think is so important. And it had to cost something. And sometimes when we walk away from the things that even God gives us, it's going to cost you something. So today, love Jesus with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, which is so important. Now we have an email from
Adam and Kristen
Adam and
Ladner.
Kristen Ladner. It says, the history, having grown up in the U.S., going to Rome felt like going to a different world. Over 2,000 years of history that still, in some parts, exists that we can only experience today. We went on the Scavi tour, which is 2 levels below the Vatican, allowed us to walk on a road that the apostles Peter and Paul could have also walked. Seeing the bones of the apostles, unbelievable and frankly, hard to process. And that's from Adam and Kristen, which is really true. It is overwhelming. It's awe-inspiring. You cannot, for me, it's like you can't take it in. You don't want to sleep. You just like, we were going to be there for 9 days and we didn't leave Rome. We stayed in Rome, right?
That's right.
We just stayed in Rome. And that's a beautiful picture over there of Adam and Kristen Ladner when they went to Rome. And it was life-changing.
Yeah.
It was life-changing.
From the spiritual standpoint, it's just amazing to see the material things, the real people, because we just grow up reading the Bible and hearing about these things in the church, and it seems so far away. Did this really happen? But what happened with Saints Peter and Paul and the church there in Rome, and how it went out to the whole world, that's almost a current history for them, because we saw other excavation taking place. I said, oh, well, that's 500 years before and 1,000 years before, and Jesus came along.
Right.
And they were excavating, and we're like, what? If you see a building in America that's 150 years old, 200 years old, it's such a big deal.
Yes.
But these things really happen. Matter matters. Time and space really matter, because it's about the incarnation, that God, who no man can behold, took on a human face and lived among us in Israel and throughout Jerusalem. And those that he touched and led to himself and converted and reappeared to after his resurrection, they took the gospel to the world, including Rome. Joy?
We have a caller, Pam from Chicago. Pam, welcome to At Home with Jim and Joy. Your comment.
Well, yes, we were in a crowd of 40,000 people in St. Peter's Square, and we ended up right in front of Father Mark and his mother.
Oh, my goodness. Father Mark from
miraculous.
EWTN.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It was wonderful.
That is amazing. Yeah. We were in the Sistine Chapel, and I met somebody from Birmingham, and the guy said, hey, he
delivered something.
We knew each other. And my other friend, who Barbara was with me, she goes, that's it. No matter where we go, somebody always knows you. It was so funny.
Thank you so much for that sharing.
That's amazing.
I think Father Mark was supposed to be at work that day here, but it's okay. We didn't say anything about it. But yeah, what an amazing, amazing place. And when I went there, I felt so at home. That was the interesting thing. And of course, my family's from Naples and some from around that area. But it was a sense of really coming home, to the church. And I got to meet a cousin that was there as well.
We did.
And that was wonderful. He said, you were more Italian than I was.
But that's not true. I'm German-Irish. But this was an amazing story. This was the second time we went. Yeah. And my brother, Buddy, was going to Rome. But he was going to Rome like going on tours. Yeah. He was coming off a ship, and he was going to be in Rome. And my mother, Marge, said to me, your brother's going to be in Rome the same time. Why don't you connect with your brother? And I was like, Ma, I'm going to Rome. We're not going to meet, Ma. But okay, if I see my brother, I'll let you know.
Yeah, and you did.
So this was amazing. So we were at St. Peter's Square, and we were making a left. We were walking down a street that we never walked down before because people were coming off the cruise ships. It was a little crowded or whatever. Yeah. And so we were just going to make a shortcut. And I'm walking. And we're booking it, and I run smack into my brother.
That's true.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Nobody looked like him. He had on a cowboy hat, and I started screaming. People were looking. I was screaming. I couldn't believe it. We get on the phone, and we call our mother, and I said to my mother, Ma, you're not going to believe it. I'm here in Rome, and I'm talking to Buddy.
And she said, I told you you'd meet him.
It was amazing. So you never know who you're going to meet in Rome.
Thanks so much for sharing your reflections on your time there in Rome. May God pour out a new and a holy fire of renewal upon our Pope, upon all the clergy there, upon the church as a whole, and to take the gospel afresh and anew to the world. We'll be right back. Plenty more to come. Please don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, before we wrap up today's show, we're going to go to Rome to check in with Joan Lewis. Now, Joan, normally today is a big feast day in Rome, isn't it?
Well, Jim and Joy, hi, and welcome to the Eternal City on one of its biggest holidays, and a very beautiful feast day it is. The Feast of Saints Peter and Paul Apostles. They are the patron saints of Rome, and it's a big holiday in Rome and in Vatican City. However, the celebrations have been muted a bit, of course, because of restrictions imposed by coronavirus. Now, what happens, there was this morning a papal mass in St. Peter's Basilica, and as has been tradition, the Pope blessed the palliums that will be given to the new archbishops metropolitan that were named since last June 29th. Now, of course, that didn't happen this year in the sense of the bishops being in the Basilica to receive the pallium from the Pope. Now, what is the pallium? The pallium is a circular band of white wool that is worn over the shoulders of an archbishop metropolitan. There's a piece hanging in front, a piece hanging in back, and there are 6 black embroidered crosses on this. Now, what the pallium does represent is the importance of the duties, the ministry of a metropolitan archbishop, but also his ties to the Bishop of Rome, who of course is the Pope. Now, this year there were 54 new metropolitan archbishops who were named, and 5 are from the United States. Archbishops Etienne of Seattle, Perez of Philadelphia, Hartmeyer of Atlanta, Belisario of Anchorage, and Rozansky of St. Louis. Now, also receiving a pallium today, but because of the position he holds, was 85-year-old Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re. He was named in January as the Dean of the College of the Cardinals by the Pope. So he also received from the hands of the Pope the palliums that the Pope had just blessed. Now, for decades, the pallium was placed directly by the Pope during the ceremony at Mass on the shoulders of the new archbishops. Well, of course, this year the archbishops couldn't come here, but beyond that, in 2015, Pope Francis changed the ceremony, mandating that the palliums, they'll be blessed in Rome, they'll be handed to the archbishops, but it will be the apostolic nuncio to the archbishop's home country to actually place the pallium on his shoulders in his cathedral. So a big change in that ceremony. And obviously another big change this year is that embassies and seminaries, so many places in Rome have big holidays for this occasion. They offer lunches, dinners, all kinds of festivities, and that's not taking place this year because, of course, the archbishops aren't here. Anyway, let's pray for them, and let's pray to be under the protection of Saints Peter and Paul. So, back to you at home.
Thank you so much, Joan Lewis. It's always great to see your blessed face and bringing us the latest there in Rome. And tomorrow is Joan's birthday. And we hear the EWTN Rome office has a great luncheon planned, and many other people will be helping her celebrate. We wanted to do our part and wish her a very happy birthday. This cake is made by our producer, Mark Kaspersky, and his wife, Maria, decorated it so beautifully. And it's beautiful, like Joan. Joan, we're so grateful for your life, for your years of love and of service, of using your intellect and your passion for the church for so many years. We thank God for your conception, your birth, and Joan, may the best be yet to come. Amen. You're loved by many, many people. Let's all pray for Rome on this solemnity. Let's give thanks for Saints Peter and Paul. Let's be faithful as they were faithful to the end, even to the shedding of our own blood. You're an important part of this family. You're always at home with Jim and with Joy. God bless you and all of your loved ones. Bye now.